Do you actually know if your cat is quietly getting irritated with you, even when everything seems fine? Most people think if their cat isn't hissing or scratching, they must be happy. That as long as they're fed, comfortable, and occasionally cuddly, you're doing everything right. But here's the thing, cats don't communicate frustration the way you expect. They don't argue, they don't complain, they adapt, they withdraw, they tolerate until something shifts. And what most owners never realize is that some of the most normal, everyday things you do are exactly what your cat secretly hates. In fact, one of these habits might already be slowly damaging your bond, and you wouldn't even notice it until it's too late. Let's start with something that seems completely harmless. 1, it's not cute when you pick them up whenever you want. It feels natural, right? You see your cat, they look soft, relaxed, maybe even sleepy. So you scoop them up, hold them close, maybe give them a kiss on the head. And sometimes they tolerate it. So you assume they're okay with it. But what's really happening is something most people completely miss. Cats are control-driven animals. In the wild, control equals survival. Knowing where you are, how you move, and having the ability to escape instantly, that's everything. So when you suddenly lift your cat off the ground, without warning, without choice, you remove all of that in 1 second. From their perspective, they didn't choose this moment. They didn't approve it, and now they're stuck. That subtle stiffness you feel in their body, the tail flick, that slight shift of their ears, that's not comfort, that's restraint. And sure, some cats learn to tolerate being held, but tolerance isn't the same as enjoyment. Here's where it gets interesting. If your cat leans into you before you pick them up, or climbs onto you on their own, that's completely different. That's their decision. But when it's always on your terms, over time, something small starts to change. They begin to trust your presence just a little less. And if you've ever wondered why your cat sometimes walks away when you approach, this could be one of the reasons. 2, you're probably petting them longer than they want. It starts off perfect. They come to you, rub against your leg, maybe even purr. So you start petting them. Head, back, maybe under the chin. Everything feels right until suddenly it doesn't. A tail flick, a quick nip, or they just walk away like the moment is over.
And it feels confusing, right? Like it came out of nowhere, but it didn't. Here's the thing. Cats experience stimulation very differently than we do. What feels soothing to you can quickly become overwhelming to them. There's actually a threshold, a point where pleasure quietly turns into irritation, and most people miss the signals leading up to it. The tail doesn't just flick randomly, it builds. The ears don't shift instantly, they gradually rotate. The body doesn't tense all at once, it tightens in small ways. But because the beginning feels good, you assume it should keep going, and that's where the disconnect happens. Most people think, my cat loved that, but what your cat is thinking is, that was good 5 seconds ago. And when that boundary gets crossed repeatedly, something subtle starts to happen. They stop initiating contact as often, not because they don't like you, but because they've learned you don't always know when to stop. And once that trust shifts, getting it back isn't as easy as just petting them more carefully. 3, staring at your cat the wrong way. And over time, those small moments matter more than you think, because to your cat, it's not just about what you do, it's about how safe you feel. And if this is already making you see your cat differently, there's a reason for that. Most people never look this deep into their behavior. So if you're starting to connect the dots, take a second to like the video and stick around, because the next ones go even deeper into things that quietly push your cat away. 4, you keep changing their environment. To you, it's normal. You move furniture, rearrange things, bring in something new, maybe even redecorate. It feels fresh, better. But to your cat, it's disruption. Cats rely heavily on spatial memory. They map their environment in ways we don't even notice. Where things are, how they move through spaces, where they feel safe. So when something changes, even slightly, it forces them to reassess everything. That chair they used to jump on, moved. That quiet corner they liked, now exposed. And while it might not seem like a big deal to you, to them, it's like their entire territory just shifted overnight. Here's the thing. Cats don't love change.
they tolerate it. But repeated, unpredictable changes, that's where stress starts to build. And it doesn't always show up immediately. Sometimes it shows up as hiding, less interaction, or subtle avoidance. And most people never connect it back to what caused it. 5. You ignore them and then suddenly demand attention. This one is more common than people think. You're busy, on your phone, working, distracted. Your cat walks by, maybe brushes against you, and you barely notice. But then later, you're free. You want affection. So you call them over, try to pet them, engage, and they don't respond. Or worse, they walk away, and it feels confusing. But from their perspective, it makes perfect sense. Cats don't just live in your schedule. They create moments, and when those moments get ignored too often, they stop offering them. Here's where it gets deeper. Cats learn patterns. If reaching out to you doesn't lead to connection, they adjust. They stop trying as often, not out of spite, out of efficiency. And over time, that changes the dynamic more than most people realize. 6. You punish them in ways they don't understand. This is where a lot of relationships quietly break down. Your cat scratches something, jumps somewhere they shouldn't, does something you don't like, so you react, raise your voice, move them abruptly, maybe even try to correct them. And in your mind, it makes sense. But here's the problem. Cats don't associate punishment the same way humans or even dogs do. They don't connect your reaction to their past action. They connect it to you. So instead of thinking, I shouldn't do that again, they think, something about this person just became unpredictable. And unpredictability is something cats avoid. This is why punishment often leads to distance, not improvement. They don't learn the lesson you intended. They just become more cautious around you. And once that association forms, it can linger longer than you expect. 7. You miss the signs when they've had enough. This is the one most people don't catch. Because by the time it becomes obvious, it's already too late. Every cat has a limit, a point where stimulation, interaction, or environment becomes too much. But they don't jump straight to aggression. They signal it subtly. A shift in posture, a slight tail movement, a change in breathing. These are early warnings. But if those signals keep getting ignored, your cat has no choice but to escalate. That's when the scratch happens, the bite, the sudden reaction that feels out of nowhere. But it was never out of nowhere. It was a conversation that went unheard. And this ties back to something we mentioned earlier, the idea that your cat is always communicating, even when you don't realize it. When those signals get missed repeatedly, your cat doesn't just get frustrated. They start to feel misunderstood. And for an animal that relies entirely on nonverbal communication, that matters more than you think. Because at the end of the day, this isn't about perfection. You're not expected to get everything right. But your cat isn't just reacting to what you do. They're responding to how well you understand them. Every small interaction builds something: trust, comfort, or distance. And once you start seeing those patterns clearly, something shifts. You stop guessing, you start noticing. And your cat, they notice that too. Because to them, being understood was never a small thing.